Let's talk about Final Fantasy XIII. Well, not all of it, just kind of my first impressions, because I received it recently as a gift on a forum I frequent. Thanks again, Lex. And because of the holidays, I haven't had a huge amount of time to play it, but I have played, I guess you might call it the prologue, or maybe a little past that. And I want to say what I kind of thought of the game thus far. The game starts out with some very impressive cinematic visuals, which is nice to see. And when you actually start playing, you find yourself with a obvious lesbian and a token black character. And I mean, honestly, this token black character is quite a bit less stereotypical and cartoonish than the last token black character we saw in a Final Fantasy game. So that's a nice change. So you go through a little, I guess you'd say, tutorial area where you learn how to do the combat and how the shop works and saving and all that. And just as you think it's going to start getting interesting, they switch to another group of characters. This group of characters is PC Principal and some oddly androgynous raver kids that have guns and are starting a revolution, I guess. You have a little more sense of what these people are up to since they're at least saving what appear to be civilians. But we come to the end of our time with them, only to have one person die, who's a woman, and apparently a mother. I wonder if this'll lead anywhere. And of course it does, because we now meet our last two characters, a whiny emo douche and fan service girl. Ugh. I mean, admittedly, his mom did just die, so I'll give him a pass on being a whiny emo douche right now. But we know this is going to continue through the rest of the game, just like it did in 7 and 8. Why do we have to keep having whiny emo douches in these games? The characters were, still pretty cliche, but at least there wasn't a whiny emo douche till this kid stepped on screen. And he's here forever, isn't he? Now what happens is a series where all of these various characters all come together into one big group. They've apparently all made it inside a robot or a factory or a ship of some kind. It's kind of vague as to what the thing they're inside actually is. But it's populated with people that this thing has given missions to that have apparently failed their missions and turned into abominations of some kind. They're kind of zombies, I guess? But we do find out the reason that the overt lesbian and PC Principal are here are to save overt lesbian's sister slash PC Principal's fiance. And of course we find her. Only to have her be happy that they found her, and then she immediately turns into a crystal. Now I've condensed this quite a bit, but this takes probably 2 to 3 hours to get to this point. And after she turns into the crystal, we have our first real boss fight. Against a robot, I guess? Kind of like this ship factory thing we're in. I'm not quite sure what to make of what this boss was. I guess it's a robot? After this, we get some cutscenes, some of which look kind of cool, others of which are just an annoying teenager and her boyfriend. But when we get out of these cutscenes, we finally have the ability to level up our characters, which means all the combat you've done up to this point was completely meaningless and pointless, because you got no experience from it. And it should be noted that the leveling in this game is not your standard RPG leveling. You get points and you get to put it into different categories for the characters that unlock different things. It's kind of like if you've ever played Tales of Xillia. Only instead of each character having one kind of spiral thing to fill out, you have several for each character. That kind of, I guess you choose depending how you like to play, but this early you don't really know what you're doing. But you're free to level, you're free to choose what characters you want to use, and you're now also on a giant frozen lake, or possibly a crystal cavern. Again, we're a little vague on what this area actually is. But this area is just here so you can grind a little bit, get comfortable with the leveling. And at the end there's a boss fight, and that's actually where I stopped because I failed on it, because it's also a tutorial boss fight, and by the time I got to it I just didn't feel like doing more. And haven't had time to get back to the game since then, unfortunately, because holidays are what they are. And don't let the snark in this video confuse you. I am enjoying this game. There are things I find annoying, like when your first 3 hours of the game, you do a lot of combat, and you basically get nothing for it. But a lot of games do that nowadays, so I can't really be that annoyed with it. It still just kind of, eats at me a little bit. And I'm sure most of the things that I'm referring to as being kind of undefined will be made more clear as I play the game. So, this is interesting. I might do another video like this, I might not. Kind of depends on the response to this one, and if I happen to think it would be entertaining to talk about this further. So, Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you all have a good last year and have a great next year.